In this video, I'm going to be talking about personal brand and what a personal brand is. I'm actually giving a live via LinkedIn. I'll make sure to put up the slides. This video is for people who are building a personal brand, thinking about building a personal brand, and you'll be surprised what a personal brand is. Let's dive in. What is a personal brand? Let's start with Jeff Bezos. He says, a personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Kris Jenner says a personal brand is the way you present yourself to the world. Chris Do, a personal brand isn't built, it is uncovered. People already have their brand story. Stephen Bartlett, a personal brand comes from and starts with creating a great story. Gary Vee, your personal brand is your reputation. And Alex Hormozi, a personal brand is the thing that you choose to associate with. I see personal branding as pizza. And the reason I bring this up is there's so many flavors, and depending on where you come from, depending on your background, your experience is how you see personal brand. If you ask an Italian what pizza is, in Napoli, they'll say margherita or marinara, I believe the second flavor was called. But if you ask an American what is pizza, they'll say big American pizza with steak or with chicken or with all types of meat. That is the same way I see personal brand. But today I'll give you my definition of a personal brand. Before I do so, I have to lead you to how I come to my conclusion of what I think, and that is my opinion, what a personal brand is. A personal brand has two words, personal and brand. For personal, we don't have to dig too deep. This is the literal definition of personal, belonging to or affecting a particular person rather than anyone else. The term brand originated from the Old Norse. So the Old Norse used the term brand, and they actually write brander, right? And brander refers to burning, so burning something. And here you can see when we read it in Old Norse, brander refers to a burning of piece of wood or torch, which is the root of the modern term brand. So brand is very old. It originates from back in the Norse days. When we talk about brand, right? Branden or brand, that is fire, right? So Sandra, please comment that you agree. Brand, that is in Dutch, the second language that I speak, it means like fire. But also in Scandinavian language, you have brenne, Swedish brenne, Norwegian or brande, which is Danish. That literally means to burn. So the term branding comes from burning. So in the 1500s, this is the origin of branding. People used to brand their cattle. And the reason they did so was because of thieves, right? If you have like your cattle outside, say you have your cow, your cow is outside, thief will come and they would snatch your cow and steal it. And you wouldn't know if it's your cow or not. Back in the days, they couldn't, just put a lock on the cow. They couldn't put a lock on the cow. So they did something else. And what did they do? They branded, like with hot iron, they branded symbols on their cattle to show that it's theirs. So branding is a way of showing ownership in the 1500s. And on the slide, you can see images of this, right? So you can see different signs. So up top, you have a sign that is like a different one than the one next to it. It's just showing ownership, showing recognition, showing belonging. That belongs to me. Branding in the 1500s, as the term developed, it's burning your mark into something, showing ownership, showing belonging, showing recognition. There are other ways of branding. Not only cattle was brand, but also slaves were brand, or criminals were brand. Branding has always been a way to show ownership. So on the picture, they mistreated their cattle. Yep, they mistreated cattle and they mistreated people as well, right? Up top on the left, you see a slave being branded, like being scarred. In the middle, there is like another way of branding, which they would put heat on these pins or just the pins itself. And if someone stole something, so the hand was used for thieves, and they would engrave the initials of the king, King Charles, right? And the initials, I don't know if you can see it on the image that well, but it's a CR, and the CR stands for Carolus Rex. Those are another term for which King Charles went by. So that was just a way of recognition. So we see still there are ways used to recognize people. Then let's move on to the 1700s. There was a big movement from the I wanted to say the plantation, but from farming, so where you had cattle, to machinery. Technology developed, and people moved from the farming, and they went to work. And in these factories, you needed people to work. You needed hands. People were needed. People left the farming. They went to work in factories. Technology developed, as I said. So products were made. More products came. More people were needed. More factories were built. And then something happened. Because factories were built and more different factories were built, the competition grew. So now, let's say person A, who was maybe all by himself making, let's say he's making bottles of something, all by himself, now had competition with other people making bottles. So what did he need to do? Person A needed to, distinguish himself from person A and B and C. So there were competitions. Competitions happened, and people had to show their own self. They had to show distinction between them and their neighbor. So what happened was they started branding, but not branding like with a hot iron on their building. No, they branded in another way, which we know today as, yes, logos. They created logos, identity. So to the right, you see trademark, a principal register. That's Samson. That is the first trademark company that you had to register your trademark, register your brand. And this was in the 1760s, 67, I believe. So it was in the 1700s that they were the first ever to come up. So as you know very well, logos came to be. So people got logos, and the logo you see on the left, Bass Coast Pale Ale, I don't know how you pronounce that. Pale ale. If there's someone from the UK here, this was in the UK, by the way, they'll probably make fun of me. But this triangle, I by accident threw up the Illuminati sign. I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to show a triangle. The triangle is actually the first logo. So this logo is the first ever created, registered, trademark logo. That is pretty impressive. What is even more impressive is that this logo is the same until today. So they've had their logo from way back as the first logo to this day. That is insane. Of course, we all know the Golden Arches, McDonald's. They had some changes within the years, but back then, logos, colors, typography, identity, branding was used. Coca-Cola, of course, was among them. So many of these companies that were competition, they had to differentiate themselves, show themselves to be different, and they used logo. What am I trying to tell you is that branding went from cattle to companies to products. Okay, so that is branding. All right, let's move on. For centuries, branding has always been about one thing. For centuries, it's always been about ownership. From back in the 1500s when they branded cattle to times when brands were created, such as Coca-Cola, McDonald's, it was always about ownership. However, today, the product is no longer a cattle. The product is no longer a company. The product is you. The product is actually you. The question now comes is, as you are the brand, are you branding yourself intentionally, or are you just going by default? Because your brand is nothing but who you are. Whether you built it or not, people are forming ideas, opinions about you. They are judging you. Your brand is when you go outside and you see someone and you are like not nice to that person, you're leaving a mark. You're leaving a brand. If you're nice to that person, you're leaving a brand. So your brand is how other people see you, how they view you, how they perceive you. Everything is brand. Branding is today, it's not logos or not just logos. It's not just colors. It's not just typography or anything we can see visually. It's also that emotional connection and way people perceive us. So in fact, you can say there is an invisible part of brand, which leads me to my personal definition of brand, personal brand. And who's that cute guy there? Is that me? Who's that cute guy looking at you? So to me, a personal brand is this. A personal brand is the intentional act of owning how you are perceived. Keywords here are intentional, owning, and perceived. Whether you like it or not, you have a personal brand. I have people that come up to me and they're like, I don't have a personal brand. And I'm like, yes, you do. No, I don't have a website. I don't have a banner. I don't have a logos. And they're like, I don't have a personal brand. I'm like, yes, you do. Because a personal brand is how we are seen by others. It's what we put out into the world. So if you go to your closest friends and you ask them like, hey, what type of person would you say I am? Whatever they say is how they perceive you. That is your personal brand. Intentionally. So if you're here in the live today and you might be building a personal brand, you might already have an intentional personal brand. You might think you don't have a brand and you want to build one. Well, I'm here today to tell you, I can't see whoever is in the chat, but I'm here to tell you that we all have a personal brand. We all have one. And the question is whether or not we are intentional about it. Are we intentional in how we are putting ourselves out there? In saying that, do you need a personal brand? In my experience, it depends on the person. Let's be clear, you have a personal brand, you have one, but do you need one? That depends on the person. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you why. Say, for example, the lady to the left, she is a businesswoman, she has built companies, and now she's at a point where she wants to be recognized more for whether something within her space or something out of her space. Does she need a personal brand? Yeah, she has a personal brand already, but because she wants to have her branding or a personal brand perceived by others in another way, maybe in another space, she could use a personal brand to develop that. She could use her personal brand to intentionally be perceived by others in a whole different way. So if you're an entrepreneur, yes, a personal brand is very, very important to have. How about a student? So the guy in the middle, a student, does he need a personal brand? Yes. You have a lot of students who'd be like, I don't need a personal brand because after school, I'm going to apply for a job and I'm going to work. However, a personal brand gives you career opportunity. In his case, he could, if he has a personal brand, instead of him job hunting, he could have people literally knock on his door and say, hey, I see your profile. You're so good. I'm looking for this and that type person. You fit my profile perfectly. Come work for us. So a student could use a personal brand. How about someone who has a 9-to-5, the person to the right, the nurse. The nurse, she has a 9-to-5 and She's like, I'm looking for something better. I'm thinking about starting a business for myself. In the case of the nurse, she could use a personal brand because a personal brand can get her face out there, get her brand out there so that within the networking space or the space that she wants to get in, they could be like, hey, we've seen your brand and maybe we're interested in a partnership. Or she could use her personal brand to get clients. She could use her personal brand to, just to get her foot in the door. So a personal brand builds trust. It builds authority, allows you to differentiate, right? So maybe our entrepreneur lady on the left, maybe, through her building her personal brand, she can be different among the other people around her because of her personality, because of her experience, because of everything, because of her story, okay? And as I mentioned, it gives career opportunities. So in the case of the student, he could get a lot of opportunities just by building a personal brand. So do we need a personal brand? Yes. If we want to be seen, a personal brand is a must. It doesn't matter who you are, your age, where you're from, a personal brand in our day and age, especially with the internet, it's a must. So how do we build personal brands? Specifically, how I build personal brands. There are a lot of ways that you can find experts who build personal brand. So how I build personal brand, and we'll touch upon this a little bit. I created a strategy. I call it the NICE strategy. And people always ask me, why is it called NICE? I strive to be a kind and a good person. So that was one thing I didn't want to forget. So I named my strategy NICE. NICE has 4 letters. It stands for narrative, insight, connection, and execution. And when I build personal brands for my clients, I take them through this strategy. I take them through their narrative, so dissect their whole story and everything. As a brand strategist, I connect the dots to make a profitable story in how they are perceived to the world so that their personal brand can build. So that's the narrative. The insight is what you see that others don't. Connection is what is your way of connecting with others naturally. So, for example, I don't mind the video, like being on screen. I don't mind that much. But I have clients that they hate video. And if I tell them, yes, you have to make content, you have to make videos, do you think they're going to do it? No, they probably won't because they don't like it. So there are other ways to connect, whether it's writing, whether it's audio, it could be drawing. There are many other ways. So what is the natural way to connect among other things, of course, and execution. How are we going to put this in action? So then we get to all the calendar, just all the factual things that we need to do to get them actually to make it easier for my clients to do so. So that is how I build a personal brand. Doesn't mean that it's the way to build a personal brand. No, nothing is the way. If someone tells you, or if an expert tells you this is the way, then run away, because there is no the way. There's no one way. Just like personal brand is like pizza, there are many different flavors, and how someone builds a personal brand has different flavors. This is how I do it. I have a wait list, so you can sign up into the wait list. When a spot is open, then you get an email, and then we can work together. As you can see, others have done this, and their testimonial is right there. Maybe some of them even are in the chat now. So this is just something. This is my shameless plug. This is my shameless plug moment, but I'm gonna pass through that. Let's move on to my favorite personal brands. My favorite personal brands out there now is Jesse Itzler and Gary Vee, and they have similarities, and they're both guys, probably about the same age. It doesn't mean I'm that age, but I like their personal brand, and the reason is Jesse. Why I like Jesse? It feels very personal. It's not forced. It feels like I know him. So seeing his posts, whether it's on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, it doesn't matter where I see this guy pops up. It feels like he's letting me inside his house. That's how I see his content. He uses, and I don't know if you can see it very well on the presentation, but he uses his own handwriting, and he has a specific way of writing his E. His E is like so specific. So I know that it's his handwriting, and you can see it everywhere. And he shares personal stuff, like he's a very family-oriented person. So he shows pictures of his mom or his grandma or his kids. Always see him with his family. When he speaks, it's not very high-level English. It's just your basic way to speak. And I haven't experienced him yet that he'd be cursing. That is something I do appreciate in his personal brand. But it's just very much how he is, right? Jesse just seems like a person like your homie. He seems like your homie. That's the best way to put his personal brand. Gary is a bit similar, but Gary, as you know, Gary is a cursor. Gary throws his F-bomb. The thing with Gary is his message never changes. What he is saying today is what he's been saying for a decade. And I found out about Gary probably about 10 years ago, and he hasn't been saying anything different. The thing with Gary is I like Gary because Gary has no branding. I call him the owner of chaos branding, in which as a designer, as a creative person, and this might be a bad thing, I'm very perfectionistic. So it has to be thought out. It has to be designed. And, Gary doesn't think about design. Gary could take this glass and he could write a quote on this glass and put his signature here. And that's it. That is Gary's post. I think he walks around with his phone. He just snaps a picture, writes something, and that is it. And it's very Gary, but it still makes him like distinct. It's his personal brand. As a person, so how he's perceived, Gary is, he talks about his mom, but he doesn't show picture of his family. Like he's not that family oriented guy. He's more of like that coach. So where Jesse is my homie, Gary is my coach. It's weird, but Gary's my coach. Gary's the guy that is, pumping you up and throwing out quotes and telling you that you need to post more, you need to make more content. So those are two of my favorite personal brands out there right now. Okay, guys, thank you so much. We're already 47 minutes in. I appreciate you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.